And that was also the same year that Boyd Packer gave his talk at the priesthood meeting of General Conference, his talk called To Young Men Only. And even though I don't remember hearing the talk, it was made into a pamphlet, and I was given the pamphlet. And that describes the evils of masturbation, and then he goes into, he never uses the word homosexuality, but he calls it physical mischief between men. The bishop found out, that I had returned unsuccessfully or whatever, but he kept me in weekly counseling sessions where I would have to meet with him on a weekly basis and report what I was doing, how I was feeling sexually, what my fantasies were about, what I was daydreaming about, what I wanted to do, what I had done, because I had been very sexual as a child. And although at that point in my life, the only thing I was doing was masturbating, but I was having homosexual fantasies while masturbating. And in Spencer Kimball's book, The Miracle of Forgiveness, he states that masturbation leads to homosexuality. And so the bishop, going on that information, said, well, you have to stop masturbating. And the only way, the way that we figured out to do that was I had to create this chart on a piece of paper with all the days of the month on it. And if I was successful in not masturbating, then I put like a little smiley face or a gold star on that day or something. And if I was unsuccessful and masturbated that day, I had to color it in red because it was the red flames of hell, burning me. And I was supposed to try and get as many days in a row as possible of smiley faces or gold stars. And I think my record was 17 days, which wasn't very, very good.
Should every young man fill a mission? The answer's been given by the Lord. It is yes. Every young man should fill a mission.
I didn't have any gay experiences on my mission. Things like masturbation were not something that only gay missionaries had to go confess or whatever. And it was an easy time for me to just stay, not deal with it and not worry about it.
I didn't do anything on my mission, but I did have very strong attraction to at least two of my companions, and later found out that one was gay and another one was gay, and dealt with a lot of guilt about it, but then I was still very much hiding, really, really paranoid, feeling that people might suspect.
All the mission rules are about you can't touch the opposite sex except to shake hands, no hugging, no nothing, you can't go out, you can't socialize with the opposite sex. So anyone with any sort of homosexual inclinations at all in that kind of a situation where you have to be with a person of the same sex 24 hours a day, who's the same age, comes from the same background, same heritage and everything, same culture, it's bound to produce that sort of sexual tension that it's got to go somewhere.
And now, here's another true story.
I was in my junior year at BYU, and of course you want to do, it was almost like being like an apprentice or learning how to treat patients. And one of the things that we could do, and we could volunteer for it, was to do the electroshock therapy for people who wanted to change their sexual orientation. And at the time, of course, I knew that I was gay. I had experiences and everything, and I had no desire myself to change my orientation. However, I thought it was really interesting that there were people who did. And I was very closeted at the time, even though I did have a lover at the time. I was really closeted. And so we did the therapy, as we referred to it, then in the basement of the Smith Family Living Center on the BYU campus. A lot of times, like, BYU security would catch people like in compromising positions or whatever, and they had the choice of either being kicked out of school and their families called and informed about what they had done, or they could undergo this therapy. And so we had quite a few people who were going through it. And then there were other people who felt like so much guilt over their sexuality, or had been promised that if they underwent this therapy, that they'd be able to marry and have children, and they would just be turned away. Of course, they had to have the desire to change. Therefore, if the therapy failed, then it was always their fault because they didn't have enough desire to change. But anyway, they would come in, usually 3 times a week. I would be behind a glassed one-way mirror, quite a large mirror. I'd be sitting behind there, and they would be on the other side of that, and they had the choice. They could look at pornographic magazines, or we would show videos up on the wall, and we would tape electrodes to their groin, and about 3 or 4 inches down from that on their thigh. Then we would also tape up on their chest. And we taped somewhere else too. I think it was up close to the armpits. And then we had another machine that would monitor their breathing and their heart rate. And what we would do is we would let them look at this stuff, and when and if they were looking at homosexual pornographic material, we would wait until we could tell a difference in their heart rate. We had a dial that we turned, and that would determine the amount of current that would go into the shock. And if they were a new patient, then the current would be very low. And we would wait until we saw that they were getting aroused, and then we would push a button, and the voltage would go into the wire. And from the reaction that I saw them, and also the muscle spasms that went on, I'm sure that it was painful. And then after we did that, then we would the movies would automatically switch over, and we would show a man and a woman having sex, and we would play very soothing music in the background to try and get the mind to relate to that. When we got into the higher voltage with the people who had been doing it longer, you could see burn marks on the skin, and quite often they would also throw up during the therapy. I mean, this is just speculation, but most of the students there at BYU had never seen any pornography. After undergoing that kind of pain over a period of a couple of months, anybody would admit that they had completely changed. What they did was they kept records for as long as the people were at BYU. And then after they left BYU, there was no records kept to see what kind of success rate they had. And so, and the statistics from just the BYU, I mean, these people were lying. They were desperate to get their degree and to get out of that situation. They had been blackmailed into that situation in the first place. We did have some people who became completely asexual after undergoing the therapy. But no, we never changed anyone from gay to straight.
This is the way it must happen. This is the way it will happen.
I first went through about 1.5 years of seeing a counselor that was not aversion therapy, but it seemed really pointless to me because all we did was sit and talk and there was nothing happening. So I said that I'd heard there were other kinds of therapy, the aversion kind of therapy, shock therapy and stuff, and I asked him about that, and he referred me to another doctor, also LDS, but in private practice, that was doing something on the order of what I guess they were doing at BYU, except the things they were doing there sounded a lot scarier. This doctor was, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, it was Dr. Card, when I saw him, he was calling it a form of biofeedback, and it did involve shocking, but the patient held the button themselves, and so the patient was able to shock themselves. The electricity had a level on it which you could set yourself, and he didn't really interfere with what I was doing, but I always kept it very low or moderately low. He indicated that if you really wanted to change, you would set the electricity higher or something. And it really, I think, scientifically is a bogus procedure. Basically, it was the same effect as a cold shower. You were starting to get aroused, and you just had some other kind of stimulus that made you think about something else for a while, so the arousal went away.